Hello everyone, welcome back to Silver Tears Tarot and welcome to today's reading. So for today's reading, I had an idea lined up for what we were going to talk about or what I was going to ask about based on what you guys had written, but in my meditation that just kind of got blown away and I realized that I just need to look for the messages that want to come out for you. We are going to make it a split pile, and the way that we're going to split it, we're going to make it a pick a pile so that it is, if you have some way to contact this person, that's this pile. If you have no way to reach them or you're blocked and you're in zero, you're completely cut off, that's going to be this pile. So we're going to do both of those. And so this one, I expect there will be fewer of you in the gray area, but the rule always is if you find yourself in the gray area, just go ahead and feel free to watch both and see which one resonates best for you, especially at the time, because there will be, if you're in the gray area, you'll have a special situation. So this is going to be a general reading as always for this collective, and so it's not going to resonate with everybody, but if it does resonate with you, then you may want to take a look at some of the other videos because all of them are very much connected. So if this is you, then you may be part of this collective. You may want to go ahead and subscribe. We're going to start out by looking at the folks who have some way to contact, even if you're in no contact, the fact that you have the ability to reach out to this person. That's who we're reading for first here. So I'm going to set this over here. We'll start out by looking at the energy between you. So remember, this is not, okay, so we have the Illusionist, the Knight of Stones, steady movement. This is not going to be asking a specific question. This is seeing what wants to come out, but we're going to start by getting that energy between you so that we have the context for the type of, you know, how do you take what the rest of what comes out? You know, we really do need that context. We have the Three of Spirals in the reverse. Three of Spirals in the reverse is often about feeling like you haven't set anything into motion, but then later the realization that that's not entirely true, that you have set some things into motion, that things are, and this just happens with normal experience, with normal life as you age and you get into later stages and you realize that you laid groundwork for yourself earlier, but sometimes we're not always conscious that we're laying that groundwork. And that's kind of what it feels like here with between the two of you, this energy of not quite feeling like you're aware of the groundwork that you have laid, are continuing to lay, honestly. The Knight of Stones talks about the path that you're taking, and it is constant, continuous movement toward one another, but not a quick process. It's very slow, steady. It is the Knight that gets there. So that's the Knight of Stones. It's like the Knight of Pentacles. It's that very slow, steady behavior, slow, steady progress. But sometimes it is so slow, it doesn't even feel like it's moving. With the Moon in the reverse, though, there's a realization. So kind of almost an ability to look at this overall situation and say, all right, I do feel like it's not moving at all, but I know that it is. And I do feel like I haven't done what needs to happen in order to set things into motion. But in reality, I know I kind of have, you know. So there's this tendency to be somewhat aware of things that are generally not making themselves really available for you to kind of help you make your decisions. So you know the information is there. It makes you a little bit more emotionally mature in the situation, and this is something that's kind of flowing between the two of you, so it's not just going to apply to you. It is heavily in your energy. However, it is also something that I feel like applies to the two of you and applies to you in your situation. So remember, a lot of you are going to be in less contact than you want, or the contact that you have is either lacking or not particularly good communication. This is happening even in the background, even though it seems like there's not much movement, and it really does seem like there's not much movement. With this Knight of Stones, like I was saying, it kind of feels like things aren't moving, or in some cases like it just feels stagnant. With this Chariot, it kind of feels like that as well, but it is almost necessary because there's a need for one or both of you to do some balancing of your energies at this time. So you've got some things that need to be addressed. Right now, there's a feeling of putting something on the back burner in order to, in favor of balance, putting something on the back burner, happiness, has to wait in order for balance. So that we've got Temperance, we've got the Two of Pentacles here, and both of them kind of have that feeling of balance, but it's a matter of sacrificing the desires for something that is fairly stable, that is the known. But there is a problem, though. There's an issue with the two of you as far as the giving and taking. And so this is something that you guys have been working on. And I don't want that one. You've been working on this because we've been talking about it. And it's something that comes up in the readings periodically. And it's going to be familiar to you if you're relatively new. But basically, this is that feeling where it deals with like that sixth mantra that I talked to you about when I did my mantras. And for those of you who are new, I will explain that I did a meditation video back in October of 2022, and then in the summer of 2023 I did a mantras video. They're both under bonus videos if you're interested, but one of them, because I talk about my mantras often, and so I thought it might make sense to kind of detail those out, talk about them a little bit. This is the one about giving and receiving love in equal measure. And so you have this ability to give love very well, but you don't have as solid of a mechanism for receiving it. You're not as good at receiving it. This person, though, your person has a little bit of a blockage kind of in both directions, so they have a tough time with that. And so this is going to be something where this is where it kind of shows up, because there are some things that even with this slow progress feel like they are getting hindered by the fact that there is like putting off happiness, putting off joy in favor of balance. You have the King of Cups here. So here comes kind of an egoistic feel, and the Hierophant, doing what is expected. So we've got a couple of pressures here that are working on the two of you that may not be working equally on you. Depends on kind of your situation. But with the King of Cups, this is somebody, and this feels more like your person, but this is somebody who wants to make sure that they don't look like they're coming across as too emotional. They don't want to look like they're out of control emotionally, certainly. There's a lot of value for them in kind of remaining in control of their emotions, and it's very strong in the sense of their ego. With the Hierophant, it's a matter of looking good from a political standpoint or from a social standpoint. There's something that it's a decision that they're making partially because of wanting to come across a certain way from a social or political sort of perspective. And it may be even just within their family, could be at work, depends on the situation. But there is something here to that, where they are making a decision partially because of a third party that is like, they work in the same business as you, and so they want to maintain some sort of distance because of that. So even though work wouldn't necessarily always be the third party that we're talking about, it may function as one in that way. Okay, so we're going to now look into what it is that you need to know. What it is that you need to know about this situation right now. Okay, so we've got the Death card in the reverse. Something needs to change, and it requires your assistance to make it happen. Six of Spirals in the reverse. Something that both of you think is behind you is not behind you. It's almost kind of got that unfinished business sort of feel. Let's see what fell. Okay. Nothing that fell face up. So we also have the King of Stones in the reverse. There's a little bit of a feeling of panic to this. And it's like a panic that feels like panic until you realize there's no reason to freak out. Like you're going to, even if you're not perfect, it'll still be fine. There's always going to be still that opportunity. The opportunity when you pan out with this person continues, even though it feels like sometimes very frustrating that things aren't happening more quickly, or that things aren't happening on the type of timeline that you had hoped for, or that you are yearning for, you know. And so we've got the Six of Spirals that absolutely acknowledges that there is still something that has to be taken care of, taken down, like a wall that has to be taken down, or it's some sort of, I feel like it's not a wall so much as an assumption, or assumption feels like the only word for the job, honestly. It just seems like something has to change in your situation. but there's some pressure around it, and you're going to be the person who's able to throw some sort of switch. Now, I'm not sure what that means, because it's like you have to do something, but it's an action or it's not taking an action. So I don't know if it's saying something to them, because you have the ability to do that. I don't know if it's saying something to them or not saying something to them. You know what? It could be an action like that, but I guess we'll continue to look into this and see what it is. With the King of Stones, though, that gives me a little bit of that sense of panic and anxiety that's kind of underneath everything, and it is very nerve-wracking sort of anxiety. It really is. This is the kind that keeps you awake at night, and it's the kind of anxiety that keeps a person awake at night who does not usually get kept awake at night by anxiety, for what it's worth. So there's a thick, difficult anxiety that's difficult to breathe through, a change that needs to happen, and you're the one that needs to throw the switch. I don't get the sense that you know where the switch is, or else you'd have done this. With the Justice card in the reverse, something is out of balance. It's part of what's causing the anxiety to have as much of an impact as it's having. You are not the same person that you were when you entered into this situation, but you may not be properly acknowledging that for yourself. So your anxiety may come from some slightly different places than it once did. You've got a Page of Swords here. So usually the Page of Swords is, swords are intellect, their communication, and whereas I don't see a lack of communication with this specifically, what I actually really see with it is kind of this passionate dragon slaying sort of energy that, you know, moves them toward wanting to move in your direction more fully, more strongly, something that is like a commitment, but they don't feel like they're able to make it. In the meantime, they are relying on the fact that they know it's coming. So, you know, we talked about with the Three of Spirals over here, that feeling of feeling a little bit concerned about not having set something into motion. But with the Moon card here, there's also that knowing that, no, you did. You set it into motion. It's there. It just feels like it's moving really slowly. So here we see that. We see that sense of really kind of something being in motion, but moving inevitably and slowly. And the strength, though, there's a little bit of advice in this. So we're going to get more heavily into advice for you when we get to the next one. But there's a little bit of advice in this. So that the energy that happens between the two of you, just as a result of your energetic bond, generates some energy that you can both benefit from. This is the strength that this person is using, and they feel like they're leaning on you to a certain degree. And they kind of are, but it's not really energy that you're going to miss, but it is energy that you could avail yourself of. So the advice is be aware of that and let that energy kind of course through you, but not take you away from focusing on whatever you need that energy for. There's a lot of love between the two of you, an outrageous amount of love, but it's like understanding of love, and the shape of everything is changing a little bit. Okay, so something has happened here that okay, that Magician in reverse, we'll see if it comes back out, because it feels like it wasn't supposed to be part of the reading, but we all know, if you watch this channel, then you know that sometimes I'm wrong about that, and things like to jump back out. So I'm inviting it if this is the right time. So they know that there's a great deal of love here. There's an awareness of that love. There is an awareness of things that are changing in your psyches, your respective psyches. But like I was saying before, not a lot of awareness about how to handle it or what that's going to look like. So it manifests in anxiety, it manifests in fear, not being sure how to move forward. The good news is I feel like you move forward anyway, but sometimes that moving forward is very slow. And sometimes it's very gradual and not the ways that you would expect. You'll have no progress when you're pushing really hard, and then all of a sudden a bunch of progress when you weren't really thinking about it. That's the kind of tower that I feel like this is. Things dawn on you. It's going to be a little bit shocking, some of the things that come to you as far as realizations. And this is going to be to both of you, and it's going to be about both of you. I'm curious to understand what it is that shocks both of you so much in this situation, because there's a lot of a feeling of things ramping back up. And I think that's kind of part of what caused me to have to do this reading this way, because it feels like the energy is getting a little bit frantic right now. And so this is just kind of, what exactly wants to come out. This is that energy being frantic, but not necessarily coming out in a linear fashion. So you can't just open up and allow it. But something is going to dawn on them a little bit differently. Okay, so there's a situation that happened in the past that they viewed a certain way, but they're going to, as they heal, and this is true of you too, as you heal, you're going to get some different perspectives on it that kind of allow you, this just came out in a personal reading the other day, you're going to get some perspectives that kind of allow you to see things a little differently. They are also getting such perspectives, but just be warned, that does not necessarily mean that you are coming to view things in the same way. So these are powerful towers, changes in thought that are happening for you guys, but not necessarily in the same direction. I see a lot of anxiety. I see a lot of needing to kind of shepherd yourselves carefully through this. I'm curious. I think when we get into the extended, we look kind of to see what is it that it's that tower for each of you, because I feel like it does manifest differently, and you are moving toward it slowly but surely. There's that sense of it's growth, it's healing for sure, but what does it mean? We'll look a little bit more into that. I'm curious to see how that's going to pan out. Let's see, I dropped a card, but it was face down. There's a lot of love here with that Queen of Cups. It's so much, it almost makes me dizzy just feeling it, looking at it. And then, I noticed, I tried it out a couple times. I looked back at it and it happened again. That's really powerful. There is a new perspective that is coming for you, but also you're already benefiting from a new perspective to a certain degree. I feel that with this Hanged Man, and this is both of you, again, different perspectives. So what is the big change that's coming? What is the new perspective that you guys have had? I feel like that's what we're going to look at when we get into the extended. And then we have also this anxiety, this just incurable, constant, I don't want to say incurable, because maybe there's completely a cure for this, and maybe it is in your meditation and prayer, which is kind of where I would expect for it to be based on the way this feels, but it's almost like a headache. It's almost like a feeling of a headache that needs to be addressed, and it's just, it keeps you from addressing it by getting sleep, which is kind of what you feel like you need. That's how this is. And I understand it might not be exactly that. It might just kind of be symbolically that. But the cool thing is you're completely ready for this. And the whole time, and I sensed that up here with the moon in reverse, where you guys were kind of aware of the progress that you're making, even though you're aware that it sometimes feels like it's not happening at all. And you do feel like you've already set things into motion, even though sometimes feels like that's not really happening. This Empress carries that same sort of nurturing, foundational sort of energy, but it's going to be necessary for sure to be careful and use that. Be careful and use that, because there's a lot of anxiety in here, so you're going to want to be good to yourself. When we get into the extended, like I said, we're going to take a look at what this tower is and what this Hanged Man is. I don't think it's the same for both of you, so we're going to look at what it is for the two of you individually. I'm not sure how we're going to do that just yet. I might have to grab another deck. But let's look first into what the focus is going to be for you. So, all right, very first thing we see is this delay of happiness. Once again, this is about figuring out what it is that makes you happy and making sure that you have a path toward it. But also understanding what you mean by happy. How does it fit into the big picture? And what else do you need to know in order to go that direction? Like, what else do you need? Because you've got this great energy to kind of plow forward with the King of Spirals right there. And you've got this great energy with the Five of Stones in the reverse of having made some great progress. So that's what makes this energy kind of a little bit, not alarming, but a little bit surprising. It's not alarming. It's not even completely surprising. It's just, it puts it into a different type of context, because you are feeling this anxiety despite having made this progress. Okay, so this is, progress despite the fact that things have already become a little bit challenging. You've got the Queen of Pentacles here. This is very much a you've got this sort of energy. It is solid, strong, ready, nurturing, able. This is the other half of that Pentacles energy that heads up that Ten of Pentacles household, which has everything. It's a life that has everything that you need. You know, I call it the household, and like they're the heads of household, but it's energy, and so it's not necessarily going to be beholden to those earthly things, although it is Pentacles, so it's got a heavy earthly element to it. This is something that, you know, you are to focus on what you have. So basically, you've got maybe some extra anxiety coming your direction, and you have some really good processes for getting through anxiety that you may not be utilizing to their fullest degree. So you're being encouraged to do that, to practice what you've learned in the past. Take into account the things that have worked the best and make sure you're making the best time for them. When you have too much on your plate, so a lot of you are going to have too much on your plate, and you're going to be pushing away opportunities as a result. We knew coming into January that you were going to have some opportunities that it was not going to be wise to take, that it was going to be you weighing some choices against some other things and trying to make the best decisions based on what you know. Be careful when you do that, that you don't get into doing it too quickly. So as you're weighing your options, you're thinking about each one individually and giving it a fresh look, so that you don't make kind of a knee-jerk response to something and then later find out that it was a missed opportunity of something that you wanted to take. Because we know that there are going to be some opportunities that you ultimately don't want to take, which of course comes out as we're talking about it. So it's opportunities that you don't want to take, but check this out. It's because you no longer need to. So with the Four of Pentacles in the reverse, this is about something that no longer weighs you down. It's like devil energy in the reverse. It feels like you've let go of something, and as a result of you letting go of it, like it no longer has a hold on you. So you can now move forward more freely, do something more freely, but I don't think you've truly explored the bounds of that freedom, and that's why some of this anxiety is here. We'll get to that though, because we're going to look into your new perspectives as well as, so here's the thing, the Tower represents perspectives that haven't quite made it to you yet. So I'm wondering how much this sort of energy might play in with that, having to let go of something. With this Queen of Wands energy though, you have, it's just like the King of Wands that you had over here. This is beautiful energy of manifestation and of being able to push something forward once you've come up with a great idea. But, you know, with the Four of Wands, you're not doing it at the expense of, this is the trick. This is the trick. That's not doing it at the expense of the energy that you need to get through the day-to-day. So one of the things that you most need to focus on at this time is that, I dropped a card, but it fell face down. But it's that idea of being able to pluck your energy from this bond. That's the lesson that came from over here, or the message that came from over here. Pluck the energy from this bond rather than from your energy that you're using to do your day-to-day, and that's going to make your decisions a little bit easier. And then don't take on things that you don't need to take on. There's going to be an element of, once again, that feeling of letting go, but this time it's letting go of walls that you feel like you need to guard, that you discover you kind of no longer need to guard. So you've got some slack, emotional slack you have to learn how to take up. And that's where some of this anxiety may be coming from if you're feeling it. And then some of it is just flat coming from your person. So there's a lot of change going on here, but it's change that needs to happen. And for some reason feels like there's a fire lit under it. We're going to look a little bit into that as we look into the Hanged Man and the Tower. Those are going to be the energies that we start with when we get into the extended. And so I will see you in there. If you want to go to that extended, the link is down below, and you'll be able to see the links to both extendeds, because I think with this one, you know, you've got very few people that are going to want to watch the individual extendeds in this case, because it's probably going to be more a matter of you identify in one category or the other. A little bit less gray area and crossover. But, you know, I think in a lot of cases, people often will just rent one of the extendeds. And sometimes they're like, you know what? I'm in both. I resonate with both. I'm going to get both. It depends. I mean, you know, you just got to do what works. So we will get started here in a moment doing the same reading, but with the other deck before we go off to do extendeds. And remember, this is going to be what we're looking at here is the messages that most want to come out for you right now. But with this deck, it's going to be the people who are blocked in some way, that are cut off in some way. And so it's the same reading that we just did, except it's going to be for the people who are blocked or cut off. And of course, this is the deck that we're going to use. So we're going to start out by looking at your current energy. Just like, I mean, so it's going to be basically the same reading. We're going to look at the current energy between the two of you. So you've got a sense of giving each other happiness. This is warmth, and it's like, this is part of why that energy is so frantic. I was talking about it in the other reading. So if you went just to this one, I mentioned something about the energy just being really frantic right now. And I feel like it's very difficult to make heads or tails of it, especially if you don't have a way to connect with this person. I feel like there's a lot of looking into the past going on right now, a lot of remembering things going on, a lot of remembering happiness. I am, for the first time maybe ever, using this deck, and I use it fairly often, I am drawn to the tear on the sun. Oftentimes in the reverse, the sun card can feel like a missed opportunity. Here, it feels like not so much a missed opportunity. It's an opportunity that they had with you, or that you had, but it feels like missing that. It's a very nostalgic Six of Cups kind of feeling. A lot of getting energy from the union itself. So another thing that came up in that previous reading, the concept of the energy that the two of you generate with your union in that spiritual sense. And so that energy is available to you, and you got the advice to utilize it, to draw upon that. Your person is definitely drawing upon that, and that's something that we often see in the readings. We don't necessarily see so much reference to you drawing upon it, but in this case, you're definitely being encouraged to do so. One thing that I will say, though, with this Ace of Scrolls, it's a little bit of a watch out. This is a sense of hiding behind something, or it's not a truth that you're unaware of, or that your person is unaware of. This is something that registers as an inconvenient truth, or somehow isn't registering as significantly as it should be. So it's a fact whose magnitude hasn't yet been discovered, you know. And when it becomes important, it's going to be important. It's going to be a big deal. It's going to be something that you or they wish they had spent some time with. So if you feel like you've got something that you're ignoring and you just need to maybe move it up on the to-do list, bring it up to the front off that back burner, definitely get in there and give that some thought. It may be as important as you think, or maybe even more important. Might be that you're hearing alarm bells go off about something very, very critical. And I don't feel like that is necessarily in this relationship. I feel like that's just kind of in general. There's a sense for both of you, and it comes from that Nine of Stones, a little bit bouncing off of that Ace of Scrolls, because it's about that energy that the two of you bring into the relationship together. You've got a lot of transformation. So this is the equivalent of the Death card. It's transformation. It's something that dies and then grows in its place. Something new grows in its place. This is much more promising than the way we saw the Death card come out in the other reading, because that one was so very refusing to make a change. This is a change that is just happening. You guys are simply working through the change, but you do feel on some level, and I feel like it's somewhat relevant to this Nine of Stones energy, you do feel like you have a little bit of each other to lean on in the energetic sense, a little bit of that 5D union. You can feel the union in the 5D a little bit more strongly sometimes when you're not in union than you can when you are in union. So that's an interesting thing that that comes out to me right as I do this reading, and I'm kind of like, wow, I hadn't really thought about it that way. But it's kind of like when you close your eyes and your other senses become a little bit keener, because you have less input that's coming in, but you also feel like you're a little bit more reliant. So you've got the Hermit here in the reverse. Both of you have a need to go in and establish a little bit more or gather some more wisdom, but you're both very protected. This Nine of Crystals is that same energy as the Nine of Stones. You're both very protected as you do it. So there's a sense of both of you needing to strive for a little bit more understanding of your own situations, but both of you feeling fairly triggered when you do. So this Three of Feathers would be, I feel like it would be a lot more convenient if it was in the reverse, you know. So when the Three of Feathers in the reverse, this is like the Three of Swords in the reverse, sometimes can feel like I have these things that I learned in the past. I recognize those lessons. I understand how to use them going forward, and the pain doesn't really impact me anymore. In the upright, the way this is feeling, all of that is true except for the part where it doesn't impact the two of you. That nostalgic view is really kind of, that's where I'm focusing on the sadness and the tear, that nostalgic feeling. With the Knight of Crystals, this is where it feels like nothing's moving forward and no one can do anything about it. There's, with you obviously not feeling like you can reach out because you are blocked or otherwise cut off. With them feeling like they're paralyzed and can't move. That is both emotional paralysis and kind of communication paralysis. They've got a lot of learning that they need to do. They've got a lot of, they need to get to a place where they can rest up and actually start to reflect on some of their healing. So far, that hasn't really happened. They've been distracted with other things, which I get. Life happens. It's easy to get distracted, but it's really in the way of this thing that, you know, they feel a passion to drive toward you that they thought being out of communication would force that to go away. But they're not discovering that the bond between you is breaking, you know, and so they're telling themselves, I don't want this. In some cases, they're telling themselves, I have to stop this. I have to make sure I don't communicate. We have to be blocked. We have to be in separation. Whatever form that takes, they're very, there's a lot of cognition. There's a lot of thinking in that. It's also a lot of guarding themselves against what they believe could be very dangerous, you know, very dangerous to their way of life, to their way of thinking. Let's look to see what else comes out for you. So this is that energetic backdrop, basically. This is that energy that's happening between the two of you. It's energetic backdrop, but specific to you, so that we can say, what's the context, you know, to take the rest of this. We've got the Pilgrim, the Page of Scrolls. So that's air energy. That's a willingness to strike out and try something new. This is a growing energy in this group, and I've noticed it growing. I didn't know why I was segmenting the group the way that I have today until this moment. So I have noticed a growing energy in the group of people who is cut off, the group of people who is completely blocked or who has blocked their person. I guess I should include that. There's a feeling of a willingness to try something new, a willingness to for a new day to dawn and to acknowledge that new day. But the Page of Spirals, this is exactly how it feels. I'm so glad we segmented the group this way today. The Page of Spirals has this feeling of not being with the, there's so much sadness here. There's so much sadness, and it's on both sides. Both of you are having a hard time finding that energy to move forward and do something new, even though that's really what's bubbling up and rising in the energy. So that's where you get, I want to reach out to them, and then how I don't want to because I'm still kind of working through processing the pain and everything. You know, you've got to process that pain so that you are a whole person when the opportunity comes back around. And at this point, this is still feeling that pain, that it very much still needs to be processed. And yet in the background, that desire bubbles up. This is yet again a Page of Scrolls, or a Page of Wind, air energy that comes up feeling desirous, which is happened in the other reading. That doesn't happen every time. A lot of times Page of Scrolls is straight shot forward, willing to try something new. But this is, again, with that, I described it as Dragon Slayer energy, willing to take steps toward transformation. But with the Tower here, there is a need to ease into something. Somebody needs to ease into something. Like, they are capable of doing what needs to be done, but it's going to take some time, and it might feel like a lot of time. That's kind of what I get with this tower, because I'm like, this is a tower that they're not allowing to fall, and you're building fortifications against it falling. So ideally, it's like a tower that has been scheduled to be torn down, okay? Scheduled to be torn down so that something, you can clear it away, use that building as building blocks to build up something new, and it's been planned. And for some reason, the existing tower is somebody's not allowing that tower to be torn down. They're not allowing the change to happen. And that's essentially what's happening in this relationship. There's something here where someone is not allowing that change to take place, and they're like frightfully holding on to something the way that it has been. That's that Page of Spirals energy, in spite of the Page of Scrolls energy that has them wanting to try something new. Okay, we got two different ones. So there's that Page of Scrolls energy. Sometimes I call it the Fool, the Minor Arcana Fool. And this is kind of that. So the Traveler in this deck is the equivalent of the Fool in the traditional tarot. And this is very much that same kind of energy. It does feel like this is a Minor Arcana Fool. There's this sense of wanting to move forward, not feeling ready for it yet, feeling very much like, so I'm just going to put this one over here because it kind of reminds me of that Page of Spirals energy, where this Traveler reminds me of the Page of Scrolls, and that's where this goes. There's something that is not complete, incomplete, and needs to be dealt with. It's not you guys, it's not between you, but it's about you. Okay, so something needs to be dealt with that is like a loose end hanging out there. It needs to be addressed. And for someone, it's the elephant in the room. And it might not be like the elephant in the room between you, because there is no elephant, because there is no contact. But it's between them and somebody in their life. Could be that third party, that something is definitely unfinished. The thing is, that could be mirroring over into your life and interacting with you and some third party on your end. And remember, a third party is just someone who has a lot of impact on your relationship. Doesn't matter how long they've been around, or your relationship with your person. Doesn't matter how long it's been around. So if both of you have been married for 20 years and you met 6 months ago, each of your partners would still function as that third party, but the way that we're defining it. So I just like to do that because sometimes I get questions about that one, and I thought this is an easy place to kind of talk through that. But there's something that is unfinished, and it's coming up between them and their third party, and maybe also you and your third party. How about that? Four of Crystals. So there's this feeling of letting something go, or needing to let something go. Just like with this tower, it's like, look, we agreed we were going to take this tower down, and now you're putting up buttresses to keep it from falling. How are we going to move forward? And so this is about actually allowing that tower to fall. So the two of you are basically, you are creating both of those impetus, both the impetus for moving forward and the impetus for running away and fleeing. It just kind of shows up in your energy because of the way that you both have been conditioned to respond to things. So we have the King of Acorns here, which is wonderful and fortuitous at this point, because it feels like the thing that kind of moves the scales in the direction of being able to try something new. And so my question is, what is that something new, and how does that come out? So maybe that's something that we'll look at when we get into the extended, because it feels like it may be that you are warming up for trying out some things with each other by trying out some things in your individual lives. And those things in your individual lives are going to help you in developing the pieces of yourself that need to be developed so that you can come back into harmonious communion with this person. With the King of Feathers, though, you may not see those connections until some time has passed. So you may be doing some new things in your life and just kind of feeling like, hey, you know what, the best way for me to handle this no contact blockage situation is to go ahead and do something else, focus my time elsewhere. And for sure, you get some form of that advice here pretty often, but it's going to yield more than that. It's going to yield more than you think it's going to. And I can even tell you that, and it's still going to happen. So you've got the 10 of Shells here. I'm sitting there saying it's going to yield more than you would anticipate. And this is the card of seeming too good to be true, or seeming like it is more than then, you know, it seems like it ends up exactly like that. It ends up being more than you would have anticipated. Now, with the Queen of Feathers, it's like it's more than you anticipated, but you end up figuring out how to put the new lessons into use fairly quickly, because that's essentially what it is. It's new lessons. You end up putting them into use, but you still have to work past this Page of Acorns, which is the same as that Page of Spirals energy. So this is like a depression that seems like it wants to follow you and your person around. Something that seems like it wants to, not necessarily a mental depression or an emotional depression. There is something that is actually making things more difficult for you. I'm curious to understand what that is too. Maybe we'll look into a couple things here. What is this? What is this King of Acorns energy, and then also the Page of Acorns energy? I think that's what we'll look at when we get into your extended. For now, before we get into the extended, let's look to see what's happening for you and where you need to focus. There's been a lot of intense energy, and we saw it if you watch the other reading, which I recognize some of you may not have because of the divisive nature of this particular the way the piles were separated out. But if you watch that one, you'll have seen evidence that comes from, like, it's very similar to other readings that have come out, or it's in line with them. Here we have that Four of Stones again, something about letting go of something that's getting in your way. It's getting in your way of rewriting your future. We have the Star, so it looks like it's going to kind of happen regardless of if you get out of the way or not. You're getting advice here implied with this Four of Stones to make sure that you're not being the thing that gets in your own way. But with Elpi, the Star here, this is saying even if you do get in your own way, I think you're just going to end up moving in the direction the universe wants you to move in. With the Hierophant, though, it can be a lot more a little bit more comfortable to navigate some of this complicated stuff. There is guidance out there, so there are some of the things that I'm telling you should be helpful. Then there are maybe some other people that would be able to provide some guidance for you as well. But it's all meant to soften the blow, some of the blow of this difficult lessons that you're learning, and help you kind of just bridge and transition to some of the learnings. But they don't come all at once. You are bringing some things into balance, and it's really a beautiful thing to watch with this Justice energy. You're bringing things into balance, and it's like you need to do that, and you know you need to do that. But it's like you've trained for this moment your entire life, and you are now ready to begin bringing things into balance. You're discovering things about yourself that are, quite frankly, weaknesses. You're figuring out where the edges of your healing are, because we always have more that needs to be done. We don't always know where it is. And so I feel like a lot of the experiences that you've been having recently have helped you to identify the edges of that healing so that you know where to work next. We got a Knight of Shells here. This is maybe feeling like a need to kind of keep something to yourself, or keep something a little bit quiet that you maybe would not ordinarily have done. And the Seven of Acorns here, though, feels like this is something exciting. It has the immediate thing that comes to mind is you won the lottery and you're not telling anyone. But I feel like it's like you won the lottery, but it's an emotional lottery. So there's this Ace of Shells. Okay, so this is something that I've kind of been waiting for this one, because this is about navigating a new energy, a new soulmate energy, something that looks like it's kind of coming your way and looking a little bit different. I think when we get into the moon reading, we got a new moon reading coming up here in the not too distant future. We're going to have a new moon in Capricorn, and we're going to look at what's heading your direction, in particular around new soulmates, because we've seen a lot of hints around that. And so maybe we'll take a little time to look at that. With the Six of Shells, though, it's a lot of what you put into place with this new soulmate. And I feel like you kind of do keep it a little bit of a secret for a little while. Kind of don't talk about your good fortune and keep it to yourself for a little while. Not like out of some kind of secrecy, but just out of, this is too precious to talk about and let the rest of the world in on it right away. So you've got a Page of Shells, which is kind of a hopeful, creative sort of feeling. The King of Crystals in the reverse. Here's where you're getting that test. Here's where you are figuring out where are the edges of your healing, and how much you do or do not believe that you deserve happiness. So here we go with that King of Crystals. Watch what comes forth and look for it in every situation where you start to feel anxiety. Then we've also got the Strength card in the reverse here. Strength card in the reverse is telling you there are going to be times where you kind of have to give yourself over to your fears, and it may be like counterintuitive to think while you're having an anxiety attack or while you're having fears that you would give yourself over to them, but there's a need to do that here. There's a need to just open yourself up and acknowledge all of the fears, even if it seems like that might be a little bit on the overwhelming side. So, those are the messages. I'm going to go ahead and go into the extended. The link for both extendeds, like I was saying before, is down below. So you can pick the one that seems most appropriate for you. I don't know that we'll have as many people picking both this time around. And so we'll see you there. Otherwise, I'll see you again in tomorrow's reading.